Before I get started, please know that this was written pre-Forsaken reveal, but I purposely haven't changed much because I can't treat existing problems as though they've been resolved until I can turn the game on and experience the fixes for myself. Also know that from here on out, I'm going to be addressing Bungie directly. Now, I haven't discussed Destiny 2 since my review went up, but with everyone talking about whether or not the game can even be fixed and what it might need, I'd like to go ahead and offer my 2 cents. I won't waste too much time getting into this because my list is quite extensive. You'll find that's the case because I see most discussions setting the bar pretty low. A few minor steps in the right direction, and Destiny streamers seem to have immediate amnesia when it comes to what's left to be corrected or improved upon. If Bungie really wants to impress their player base, to make this game one of the standout experiences of our generation and whatnot, let's discuss all the things they could do, at least the things I could think of. If I'm missing something, please leave it in the comments. Spoilers are going to be rampant anywhere in a video like this, so please don't watch if you are worried about spoiling the game for yourself. We need more freedom in the subclass perk trees. No more of this attunement autopilot nonsense. It wouldn't hurt to see some new perks there as well. New subclasses with at least one new damage type, or even use the old damage types and or kinetic for all I care. Just something different. That would be nice. It's time for a 4th character class. The character classes are unbalanced. The Hunter is not the most mobile character, for example. Titans outshine every class when it comes to speed, power, and space magic, what I presume is the Warlock's forte. You need to give back the power fantasy which we had in Destiny 1. You need to let players feel overpowered from time to time, because at the moment the game is starting to feel ever more like The Division. Bosses are slowly becoming mere bullet sponges. As a result, players just hide behind cover. No one rushes or flanks anymore. We don't see as much varied gameplay as we used to. Bring back self-res on the Warlock and give us a Titan bubble worth having. Hunters are the only character class with a defensive subclass, aka Shadow Shot. When you removed Warlock's self-res and Titan bubble in the move to D2, you stripped away the defensive ability of those subclasses. Doing so clearly hurts PvE, but it's often understated just how much damage this did to PvP. Seriously, the team shot meta will continue to exist as long as 2/3 of the characters playing can't wander off on their own with self-reliant defenses in place. On the flip side, the Hunter's tactical abilities leave a lot to be desired when it comes to team play. Hunters can't help the team with their tactical, and that should be addressed. I feel like almost every time I swing a sword in Destiny 2, it's less effective than it was in Destiny 1. I don't mean the damage that's being done, I mean the targeting of what I'm swinging at is sometimes completely off. I can't accurately fire a weapon when I'm in the air. This is most likely owed to the fact that the in-air camera centers around being in the 3rd person for super usage and whatnot, but invest some time in getting this right. I was a dead shot in air playing Destiny 1, so I know it's possible. Many people are saying time to kill is too quick, while others are happy with where it's at. Personally, experience tells me that this is all over the map. In PvP, only a few weapons, grenades, and supers stand out, which is why time to kill seems off. In PvE, enemy level doesn't seem to indicate what the incoming damage will be. It's as though a level 1 enemy will be just as deadly as a power level 380 enemy, the only difference being how quickly I, as the player, can take them down. That's what I'd address if I were a dev, which I'm not. Let me say up front that I know there are people working their asses off on this game at Bungie, and I don't want them thinking this is meant as an attack on them. Quite the opposite is true. I'm trying to help the bigwigs get the message already that this passionate player base does not want to be pushed away from our investment in Destiny, as I'm sure those working hardest at Bungie would agree. Can we get a more robust character creator? I want to be able to edit the appearance of my current characters. I want to be able to name my characters. You might think about adding permadeath characters or ghosts with limited uses, and a 4th character slot would be amazing. Extend the melee range a little bit already. Grenades should feel lethal, not all of them do. And that fact makes even more baffling the lack of secondary grenade charges we'd grown used to in Destiny 1. I find myself routinely in need of an ammo consumable, and there aren't any in the game. We need options for controlling and prioritizing our ability recharge rates, meaning those of us who prefer fast grenades and melees to fast supers and tacticals should be able to perk our characters preferentially in this way. Not that any recharge rates in-game are currently going fast, lol. I'd like to see all D1 exotics in Destiny 2. Now, part of me wants to see all D1 locations in Destiny 2, and part of me doesn't. We'll get to why later on. Ships need a purpose. We want space combat, but it would also be cool to see loading screen activities of some sort. Bring back the artifact slot. Being able to choose a horn on a sparrow was a neat feature in Destiny 1, and it's lacking in Destiny 2. You know the aura which appears on your head when you complete the Nightfall in a certain way? There should be a slot for this sort of thing. It should be pre-populated with items like the emote wheel is, and we should be able to freely choose what we want once we've completed a certain activity. Maybe even be the sort of thing we can equip multiples of, and on differing parts of the body. I can't be alone in thinking that there should be guns on sparrows, or the ability to fire weapons while on a sparrow. Where did the overload sparrows go? I used to be able to drive quite a bit faster at the risk of my sparrow exploding, and those are absent now. There's currently no system in place for gear upgrades, and it's probably the biggest missed opportunity in the franchise. It also hurts the longevity of the experience. Let me pick up a common item, and eventually change it into a legendary or an exotic. Period. We should have collections in the game at a bare minimum for everything that is legendary or better. Please start treating ghosts like part of our gear sets, and put power level on them. I'm pretty sure quite a few players have been out of the loop for a while, most having missed Season 2 altogether, so it's a sensible idea to go ahead and put something in place which allows players to earn seasonal items which they missed while the game was in its lifeline state, even if it's super grindy or the chance to get it only comes once per year, like they do in Overwatch. Just some way to be able to earn that stuff we may want but missed out on because the game was akin to a cold turd when seasonal items came around. We all want random rolls, and you're giving them to us eventually, that's no secret. What could be more interesting, however, is if you had an upgrade system in place for your gear, with more and more perk slots opening as you leveled it, and instead of dropping randomly rolled weapons, the game dropped a random perk, which you could then apply however you please to whatever you please. Meaning if you wanted to put explosive rounds on a fusion rifle, you could do that. I think it would be nice if we could remove legendary modifications from gear before destroying it. You need to divorce form from function, which is to say that players should be able to look how they want to look as well as play how they want to play. You've got those two things commingled right now, and it's hurting the experience. Even with all 3 character slots open, there's currently not enough space in the game to save every single item you can earn. For a looter, that's a problem which should not exist. Destiny has a reskin habit, and that habit needs broken. Making minor modifications to gear, then releasing it as something new is not acceptable. The mod system in Destiny is fairly annoying at the moment as well, primarily because the mod page fills up so fast. You just need to simplify here. Instead of a bunch of different armor mod types, just make singular armor mods. Those we can apply to any armor piece we please. Problem solved. Some of the weapon slotting changes made in the move to Destiny 2 were perfectly sensible. But putting snipers, fusion rifles, and shotguns in the heavy slot, that's a bridge too far, as these need special variants. Machine guns should be in the game. Weapon infusion bugs me. I don't like that infusion is scout rifle to scout rifle. I'd like to see primary to primary, secondary to secondary, things along that line. In other words, the Destiny 1 system, not the Destiny 2 system with regard to infusion. There are no trick sparrows in the game. Put them in. This is a no-brainer. Start allowing armor infusion between character classes again. Why can I not put shaders on a sword? Add thermal scopes to the game. Free up more content that's currently locked in the Eververse. Give us the ability to save loadouts. Let us earn non-kinetic primaries. Even if there's only one for each damage type, give us something. Destiny is one of the best shooters around, but what it's missing is a dual wield function. Hipfire only, no zoom, but let me dual wield certain weapons. You need to begin doing a better job of clarifying what the outcome of infusing an item will be for players before they do it. No more guesswork or accidental oversights. The game is a little too rewarding at the moment. As an example, this week I was playing some PvP, and every single match finished with a legendary item. I would like to begin seeing legendaries made slightly rarer than they are, but with increased odds that we're going to get something which we don't already have. When the blue items stop meaning something to my power level, you should begin auto-decrypting them into materials for me. I feel like I spend a quarter of my time in the game just deleting blue items. Can someone explain to me why legendary and exotic drops aren't locked by default? I want to be able to share items with friends. Even if it's extremely limited, say you only let me share a single item with a friend once per month, that would be better than nothing. Literally every time I play with one of my nephews, They want to turn the game off the moment we're watching the loading screens. You need new activity modifiers. Give randomized weapons as an activity modifier a shot. Put sparrow racing in the game, and then leave it there. Go ahead and put a true soccer experience in the game, then let people matchmake into it. Give us back the vendor bounties. The game could use more secret challenges. Think the Black Spindle mission from Destiny 1. There are also some hidden areas in the game which you could put to use by having them kick off gear quests of some sort. I'd say you could use them for branching narrative choices or the earning of items wholly unique to the player in question, but let's not kid ourselves about how much of an investment you'll be giving the community. It would be nice to see reward incentives for opening all region chests and completing all lost sectors in the game. I highly doubt anyone would complain if you added a bonus game mode wherein players could earn specific currencies faster as a reward for doing a hard thing. How is there still not a single mission or PvP type where you play as the enemy? I want to see a game mode which only lets me use masterwork items. The game suffers from a lack of stealth missions, or those which require tactical gameplay. Another old trick you can employ is taking players through the raid areas within story missions, and these should help explain why we go where we go for the raid, because that was about as muddled over as anything I've yet seen in either game. We've also got no story missions or adventures in PvP maps, which was a Destiny 1 staple. I'd like to see activities wherein certain enemies could only be damaged by melee, others only by grenades, supers, certain types of weapons, that sort of thing. It would be cool to go up against some of the NPCs in the game, whether it's in a story mission or a PvP game type. I've got a lot of gear which I never use, and the game never asks me to use it. You should probably start having it do that. Another Destiny 1 staple I'd like to see make a return are the invasion events, wherein, the DLC comes out and suddenly we're seeing an enemy type appearing in a patrol location where they normally never appear. Those were fun, as was the purpose typically tied to them. As I'm sure you know by now, we all want a new enemy type, but it doesn't have to be anything major. You don't have to bring in some alien race we've never seen before either. You could do Ghostless Awoken or Taken Frames, just as long as it's not a reskin like we just got with the Icy Hive on Mars. I want to see the Siva Spliced Fallen come back into the game. Start blurring the lines between PvE and PvP activities. You could achieve this simply by having two fire teams race to complete strikes fastest, or achieve the highest score during certain story missions. Things like that, so long as competition is at the heart of it. I miss the way factions were always active in Destiny 1, but I also miss being able to change factions at will. And now, I can't even change factions between classes. My different characters have to be with the same faction. What kind of nonsense is that? The farm feels empty after completing the campaign. You need to repopulate it with vendors of some sort, even if you're just using holograms from the vendors at the tower. The Cryptarch should be leveling, along with the other vendors. You could even use Grimoire cards as the carrot for this stick. D2 needs better in-game incentives for leveling the vendors. There should be a reason to interact with all vendors on a routine basis. Amanda Holiday stands out to me as someone who I almost never visit for any reason. Simply instituting something in the way of a ship and Sparrow upgrade system would solve this problem. Gunsmith orders and weapons testing. Yeah, I want that back. I miss the materials exchange. And if you brought it back, you could probably institute rep exchange as well. Maybe you can only exchange, for example, 3 Mars tokens for 1 Crucible token, but if I want to take my Vanguard rep and put it toward my faction rep, I should be able to do that somehow in the form of an exchange. I want to be able to see the level of each vendor within a centralized location in the menus. If we're going to call Xur a vendor who is present on the weekends, can we make sure that he's there on Sundays as well? Bring back the Grimoire. Answer the burning questions before sidetracking deep into the vaguest parts of the game's lore. We want to know what's going on with Eris Morn in a forefront kind of way, not to go off looking for the tomb of that guy an exotic Titan helmet is named after. You need to find some writers who fully appreciate the storyline which players have been given up to this point, all of it. And you need to do this for 2 reasons. 1, so that they stop making mistakes, and I don't buy the players thought wrong excuse. And 2, so that you're not steamrolling through very major plot points in a matter of moments. While I'm beyond it now, new players should have the ability to skip cutscenes on characters 2 and 3. What you've done on Mars with regard to collectibles and sleeper nodes is mostly exquisite, as are the Brother Vance Forge weapon grinds. This formula should exist in every patrol location. There should be incentive to seek out the scannables which are already in each patrol location, apart from just hearing the ghost talk, and we should have tracking for all of these. Mercury's patrol zone needs overhauled, bringing all of the genuinely neat locations from missions and adventures into the fold of patrolling. The Infinite Forest would function far better as another horde mode locale, and because time travel and simulation are key themes there, the possibilities of what you can experience there should be boundless. I should be able to square off against D1 bosses, NPCs, and even myself or my own clan members in this currently underutilized place. Flashpoint is a neat idea, it just doesn't go far enough, by which I mean that it should function as a checklist of things to do in a patrol location, not simply grinding public events to completion. You need to give us a reason to visit all patrol locations in a given week, and again, don't just set the bar at public events. Europa should be a playable area. I'm not letting this go. Even if it takes adding small planetoids or meteors, it would be nice to see truly open world areas for once. A space which functions like a globe, circling around on itself without boundaries. Everyone I've played this game with has complained that they can't set waypoints anywhere they please on the map. Patrol variation. We need more of it. We also need randomization. I can tell you exactly where a patrol bounty will spawn and exactly what it's going to be. There may be a set of 2 different possibilities, but I know exactly what they are, and that shouldn't be happening. Another major pet peeve of mine is that patrol missions and fast travel points don't exist in the less traveled to patrol locations, those which are out of the way or lead to a dead end. You'd think that would be where they were needed most. I recognize Mercury is a small area, but please let me use a sparrow in that small area. It literally looks like it was built for sparrow usage. Public events need more variance. We need to see more types of public events, and we need to see them happening in different places. Another obvious addition would be a 3rd tier of difficulty to the public events, because the current heroics are just way too easy. Most people could probably do certain heroic versions by themselves at this point. Lost sectors suffer from a lack of purpose, and also need to be more difficult to beat. Specifically, it should be all but unheard of that players complete these on their own. And I know what you're thinking, people have soloed raids, guy, be realistic. Well, my response to that is pretty simple. Give it some co-op mechanics to prevent solo players from progressing. Even kids games have no trouble getting this to work in their games. Patrol missions should become increasingly difficult as you beat more and more of them. I want to be able to fast travel while a patrol mission is active. I'd like to see gravity made more realistic depending upon where I'm visiting. Gravity is greater or lesser on space bodies which aren't Earth, something to think about. Another thing which would be extremely welcome is if we could take up to 6 players into a patrol area. There should always be something to chase if you actually want this game to be a hobbyist experience. Meaning once someone has acquired all of the gear in the game, there should still be something there. Something to pine after, something to do, some reason to use the gear which we grind so hard to get. You should incentivize daily login and reward players for login streaks. Did the community give the impression that we didn't like the record books? Bring those back. You need to be releasing new trophy sets with each DLC, or at least for each new season in the game. You could easily incentivize players to complete all strikes or complete all raids in a single week. I'm starting to sound like a broken record, I know, but if you bring back the Grimoire, please also bring back the Grimoire score. As I'm sure you realize by now, players actually like these status symbols, and the more you have, the better. While we're on the topic of score, perhaps the Destiny Gamer score total could be added, something which shows what your score is across all activities combined. I hate to keep harping on the hobbyist notion, but a true fan service would be a hardcore record book, or a hardcore trophy set in the game, or both, just so that players who actually reach the end game still have something to pursue. I realize this will probably be the biggest point of contention in the entire video, but you should really connect the experiences of Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. It's fully possible. You've got 2 universes going now. The first is populated with innumerable things which could still have players playing, people paying for things from the Eververse like you seem to want, etc. You just need to make the games communicate with one another. In Destiny 2, give players a reason to go play something from Destiny 1, and vice versa. Make the games converse with one another, and when you release Destiny 3, do the exact same thing. Nobody likes console exclusives, and you're in a great position to lead a revolution in console gaming by pushing for crossplay as a functionality, so that Xbox One players can go up against PlayStation 4 players. You have the perfect platform to try making that happen for us. If PC players got thrown into the mix as well, you'd have the most epic gamer battles which ever were or ever will be. I'd like to see something in the way of a guarantee from your team that Destiny 3 will be meaningfully linked to Destiny 2. And I don't simply mean that our characters will move over or that the storyline will continue. Every game gives us that. Originally, we thought this was going to be a connected 10-year experience. We want to see that notion made good on, as it would make the entire 10 years of Destiny almost infinitely replayable. I'd like to see a heroic missions playlist and a heroic adventures playlist. I want to be able to play individual story missions or individual strikes at will, just like I was able to in Destiny 1. You don't want the map cluttered, I get that. So just take what you already have in place for strikes and expand upon it. Let me go into a playlist section of the director and pick an individual strike or mission. I'll click on a randomize button if I truly want a playlist experience at random. Players want strike-specific loot. What you had in place in Destiny 1 with the dedicated chests and keys was a wonderful system. And the Nightfall should be more challenging than heroic strikes. Difficulty is a problem in your game. You need to address that. You need to address that by making sure that there are more than 2 difficulty tiers, and also ensuring that the highest difficulty tier is always something which is near impossible to beat. Another point on the topic of difficulty, when players change this setting, it should change the enemy's AI, not simply increase how many bullets it takes to defeat a given enemy. There needs to be more that's unpredictable in the enemy encounters, and what I mean by that is that I shouldn't always be able to tell what an enemy is going to do. Having a base system in place is fine, but every now and then there should be that enemy which just rushes you or runs from you, turns into something else, takes a dirt nap, etc. like there's no tomorrow. That should be a thing that's happening. I understand that the predictability of enemy encounters is a bit of a double-edged sword. After all, people do like the power fantasy. They like being able to come home and just mow through stuff, know exactly where enemies are going to be, and have a good time. But specifically when patrolling, we don't need to know exactly where everything is going to spawn as we move from place to place. Rewards need to be structured to match the difficulty of what you're taking on. I shouldn't be able to play the base raid and get loot that's at my current power level while I play one of the most hardcore activities in the game, looking at you, heroic strikes, and I get junk. A lot of shaders in the game aren't all that interesting when measured against Destiny 1. You could probably solve this problem by giving us color wheel control. It looks like each shader consists of 4 color points. Maybe something else we collect are individual shader colors, and we can put them in certain parts of that color wheel to create our own shaders. Also, while mass deletion wouldn't be an issue if you followed all of the advice given here, make sure stacks of things can be deleted in mass. Shaders should not be single-use items. I like the idea of being able to put individual shaders on individual pieces of gear, but there should also still be an option, just like in Destiny 1, for applying it to all of your gear at once. One of the more annoying things about shaders right now is that I'm seeing an up-close view of items while previewing. I ought to be able to look at my character in full as well, even if I'm only previewing a single piece of armor. Additionally, shaders should look the same in preview as they do in the world, which is far from the case in Destiny 2. The emote wheel is exactly how every slot in the game should function. Weapons, armor, ships, sparrows, everything. I should be able to click on a button and pick up anything I want without having to depend upon a vault. Vaults could be turned into something far cooler, such as a place you house your gear for a time while it upgrades or gives you wild mutations. The Destiny 1 missions page is far superior to what's going on in Destiny 2, wherein pursuits and milestones exist in different locations. I want to be able to look in a collection and see what I'm missing, be it a shader or an exotic armor. I also want to be able to see which exotic armors I'm missing for, say, a hunter if I'm currently playing as a Titan, as this makes purchasing from Xur much simpler. Why is it that sorting a vault alphabetically is not currently something which exists? You need to begin either highlighting duplicate items, those we have more than one of, or stacking them and numbering them. It's a small thing, but still annoying, that when you're a fire team leader, you can't leave the fire team and change activities in tandem. I'd like to see a top-level chat system in the game, which involves typing, something all players have access to. That way, if you have a question about a particular facet of the game, you can simply type it into the chat, and wait on a player to give you a response. Emotes are cool, but I also want to see fireteam commands, so that you can send text or voice alerts, such as telling all of your team to do things like save their supers without having a headset plugged in for chat. I like that you'll show the entirety of my friend list in the Destiny menus. Now you just need to let me see their Destiny profiles while they're offline, as well as send them game invites while they're offline. Public chats are underutilized in Destiny, so you should probably incentivize players to actually join the chats. The functionality of menus should be optimized to function best while loading into activities, which is to say that applying shaders and changing gear should work best during load screen downtime. I realize Bungie's tracking a lot of player stats, even those they're not making us aware of, and it would be nice to see them all, again, centrally located, not split among emblems in the game or buried in the grimoire if it's ever reinstituted. It would be interesting to see more social record challenges, in essence, scores which friends have posted when they've completed certain activities, as well as world leaderboards for these things. I like emblems, but I think it would be neat if you had a customizable player card, allowing you to show specific stats of your choosing and maybe post a tagline or message within it. You know by now that raids should have perks on their gear which help with the raid, right? It's clear you're going to have to call this next bit something else because prestige is tied to the platinum, and you have to keep that where it is so that players can complete it without purchasing the DLC, blah blah blah. This all having been said, the hardest version of the raid should always be at max power, each and every one of those raids. There needs to be a full loot pool for each and every raid activity, with bonus gear types coming from the highest difficulty tier, in essence only drop masterwork or harrowed versions of things from the hardest take on a raid. Can we stop calling the raid encounters raid layers? That's confusion sauce. There ought to be a difficulty setting on raids, which makes it friendly for noobs. This is achievable with the simple addition of hints, along with lower level enemies. But the game also suffers from a lack of cheesable raid encounters. This may be my bias showing, but I was slowly sold on raids thanks to the Crota Raid's exploits, and the fact that it could be beaten, albeit slowly, alone, or with a fire team of less than 6. Destiny 2 has nothing in the way of raid encounters which let players test the waters of raiding, if you will. A good compromise to allowing these things somewhere would be loot pool changes. Simply give players an exotic chest somewhere, and drop nothing but legendaries common throughout the rest of the game, maybe even throw in an emblem or an aura which pokes fun at players who beat the raid on easy or cheese mode. Escalation Protocol is a decent idea. Putting it in a patrol area, that's not such a good idea. It needs to be in a dedicated space with matchmaking. It's my understanding that Escalation Protocol only drops worthwhile gear at level 7, that the levels 3 and 5 chests don't really give you what you need in the way of gear. That's kind of a bummer. Now that we have something of a horde mode back in the game in the form of Escalation Protocol, I'd like to see it incorporate every enemy faction, the way that all 3 of the horde modes in Destiny 1 did. Let me pick my PvP game type, no matter what it is. Losing streaks in competitive PvP, that's a bad idea. Also, the leveling in PvP is little more than window dressing. It ought to mean something, even if you're doing some Call of Duty hand-holding and not letting me use certain gear or abilities until I level up. Maybe I can't pick up heavy ammo until I'm at rank 2. You get my meaning. I'd like to see bots in the PvP, even if it's just for private matches. Level advantages should be enabled in Iron Banner and Trials, and Trials should go back to the 3-player model, unless the other milestones are going to favor 4 players, as it's difficult to single out a 4th player when you've been running with 3 players since Tuesday. It might also go a long way if you enabled level advantages in your competitive PvP as well. The base of Destiny 2 should feel greater than the sum of all of Destiny 1. Part of where you're getting it wrong is with the PvP game modes. Bring things like Rift back into the fold, and give us some new match types as well. There should be more viable weapons in the PvP experience. As an example, take auto rifles. I know that I can't use a slow-firing auto rifle to the same effect which I can use a high-firing auto rifle, no matter how many shots I land. You brought private matches back with fewer options than we had in Destiny 1. We want more, not less. Give us everything we had in Destiny 1 and then some. It would be nice to see a giant player versus player experience take place in a patrol location, by which I mean the entirety of a patrol map. Just one giant PvP experience. You should shamelessly be incorporating popular PvP game modes into your game. Things like Gun Game from Call of Duty or the Fortnite Battle Royale, along with modes which don't revolve around killing things, those which rob us of abilities, those which rob us of weapons, etc., these should be in your game. There are two things happening in other player versus player offerings that I take on which I don't currently see occurring in Destiny. One of those is kill cams, to be able to see the screen of the person who just took me out in PvP, optional of course. The other thing would be play of the game or highlight reel footage at the end of a match. Believe it or not, I don't like seeing my character holding the flag at the start of every PvP outing. I miss the flag hold meaning something, but even if it were a random player, that would still be better than always seeing my character holding the flag. It just kinda takes the air out of that balloon. Destiny 1 did this neat thing where they gave you PvP maps in areas you couldn't yet visit. I'm thinking of Mercury specifically. I'd like if Destiny 2 began to do the same. Another thing which you could do is take locations from Destiny 1 and start turning those into PvP maps for Destiny 2. We've seen a little, I'm talking a lot. We can no longer depend upon the minimap in PvP to show us accurately where players are the way that we could in Destiny 1. Might want to address that. The PvP default should be 6 versus 6. Simple, right? Of course, you should have 2v2, 4v4, and a whole host of other variations, such as 1v5, with the solo player always having a super active, but adherence to 4v4 is atrocious as a concept. What's the point of a Crucible ranking system if other players can't see our ranks unless we're sporting a specific emblem? While I'm all for giving players the freedom to display stats of their choosing, some, such as Crucible ranks, should be visible by default. It would be nice to begin seeing clan wars. This could even be something as simple as a King of the Hill type game mode in PvP, or a 3 fire team take on Clash. I belong to a small clan. That having been said, I clearly see that larger clans are at an advantage when it comes to leveling. The more players you have, the better gear you're getting from being part of that clan. And to an extent, that doesn't seem right. If I can have the minimum number of players allowed in a clan, I should be able to level just as much as people who have the maximum number of players allowed in a clan. I'd be willing to wager that most Destiny 1 players were hoping for a customizable clan base. You could actually take the farm, if nothing else, and let it be as much with a fair amount of ease. Just think, clan-based editions could be a new type of loot drop, meaning even more incentive for players to keep playing. There ought to be a clan ranking system so that you can see your standing, whatever that may be. Perhaps it's score-based, this is most obvious to me. Another thing would be the ability to search for a specific clan in-game and request invite into that clan. Clan membership should become necessary at some point within the endgame. You could do a lot with this. There are still quite a few bugs and glitches in the game which need to be worked out. I'm not going to go over all of them, but what I can say is that with regard to the Warmind release, I've seen missions from the campaign crash on at least 3 occasions now, and the rubber banding has gotten out of control. Story missions recycled as strikes. This is among the laziest things I've ever seen any gaming studio ever pull, and you've done it multiple times now. You don't have to be an expert in statistics to recognize that allowing duplicates of the 40 sleeper nodes means that the odds of completing all 40 are insane. I recognize you only need 15 of those 40 nodes to get what you need out of it unless you really want that emblem, but seriously, make sure I don't get any dupes until I've obtained all 40. There seems to be an increasing number of invisible walls in your worlds. It's annoying in the extreme. Let me go where I want to go. Let me jump to that high up ledge. Don't block me from it, just let me get up there. And even if you're giving me a countdown timer that's letting me know I'm going to die if I don't get down, still let me go there. Almost nothing is more aggravating than trying to jump somewhere it looks like I should be able to land, and suddenly I'm bouncing off the unseen edge of a Bungie bounce house. It just completely breaks the experience. You may not know this, but most players, when they're moving in your game, they're sprinting. That's why when you release something like Go Fast, it should be applied to sprint speed in addition to walk, jump, and super speed. We need to see the speed increase across the board, so add it to sprint speed. Might want to make it a little bit faster too. I can travel across the solar system in your game, but I can't go beyond waist deep in water without dying. And I really don't think you need another 4 years to consider why that's so problematic. Can we agree that time invested in your game is time invested in your game, no matter which character you're playing with? Because if we can agree on that, then let every character slot complete milestones no matter the class. This isn't a problem for people like myself who use all 3 classes, but for someone who mains, say, a Warlock in 2 of their save slots, they're missing the opportunities which the rest of us have. It's an arbitrary waste of their time, and it's cheapening the experience. I don't like that light has become power, and I don't like that darkness is absent. Put those two things back in the game. Now, if the idea came about because Guardians are robbed of their light in the beginning of the campaign, it makes some sense why you would call this power, but by the same token, there is no way that power is even meaningful to you until well after you've got your light again. The grind at the moment to max a player's level is ridiculous. It's 45 points. 45 points worth of playing milestones and raids. And there are players who do not play the raids, who don't have an adequate opportunity to play them. The problem is even worse though, because once you get to max power, not all of your gear is up to par. If you want to change your gear and still be at max power, you have to continue completing these activities in hopes of an infusible drop. It's a little beyond ridiculous. Try saying the next point with me. Matchmaking should exist for all activities, even trials. What's the worst that could happen? You have to go up against randoms? Odds are you're going to win. Why would you complain about that? Matchmaking is fair to all players in all activities. You need to do two things with guided games. One, you need to incentivize players to actually guide other players through activities. And two, you need to make sure that any size fire team can match with any other size fire team. I specifically had trouble with this the first time my friends and I tried going into a raid with only 3 players, as it doesn't allow that in guided games. 3 versus 3 does not matchmake. This is almost certainly never going to happen, but I would love this game exponentially more if I had an option for local split screen play. Can you imagine 4-player local PvP? You could also promise the player base that we'll be given the ability to host our own sessions in the future. This way the game remains playable if ever the servers go offline, as online games tend to do. I mentioned that most of this was written pre-Forsaken reveal, but since it's been shown now, let's talk about it. As you may have gathered, you're addressing a good third of my list, or so you'd have us believe. I remain apprehensive given your track record with Destiny 2 thus far, and as I made clear in my Destiny 2 review, you've lost me as an early adopter. The small amount of goodwill earned with Warmind and the various patches have not changed that fact. The truth is that I will never be as invested in D2 as I was in D1 until the experiences are connected, and until the collector in me can turn the game on and be able to chase every item that exists in Destiny 2. A problem caused by the seasonal, one-and-done system you have in place. As obsessed as I am with this world, my time is often limited. Anyway, $40 for the Forsaken expansion is fair, but the annual pass should be free if the Eververse is staying in place, especially if cutscenes are hitting the back burner and there's no promise of new raids. Also, the Year 1 DLCs should be given free of charge if purchasing the Forsaken DLC. You've alienated a large portion of your fans in Year 1. So following a business-as-usual model for Year 2, while games like Fortnite, Gems of War, and Warframe are proving free-to-play works, it's a horrible idea. I'm playing D2 again, though I intend to await reviews from toxic, aka passionately honest people like SkillUp and Darkside Royalty Lore, before getting on board the Forsaken train. What I'd like to see is this game made more appealing to the rest of my gamer friends. By the end of D1's life cycle, I was running multiple raids on multiple characters with multiple sets of friends each and every week. At the moment, I don't even raid in Destiny 2 because I'm not big on playing with randoms, and almost no one else that I know is playing, which I say is someone who built a good half of their friends list playing Destiny 1, meaning I'm in a better position to have friends playing than the average gamer, yet I still don't see people playing. Part of making Destiny 2 a success is going to be making the point of entry more accessible than you're used to. Otherwise, you'll keep hemorrhaging players to newer or less expensive experiences. Note that I'm only advocating appealing to casuals with regard to price point. If your content is good and the price is right, players will come. Everyone is seeing even less bang for the buck here at this point though, and you're coming at us like the "this is fine, fire everywhere" meme. So, having gone through my list, it should be pretty obvious that a lot of what I want is a return to the form of Destiny 1, and quality of life improvements beyond that. I think it's sensible to expect as much from this studio. Something else you should be doing is looking to certain other games for inspiration. Since Destiny is such a wild mashup of different things, it would behoove you to borrow some ideas from the other games which get it right. For instance, you could look at Call of Duty and Battlefield for online game modes, as well as how to make the progression of your character in PvP feel worthwhile. You could look at Overwatch and Gems of War for decent direction with regard to in-game experiences and how to keep players coming back. If I were you, I would look at the Borderlands series as the right way to tell stories in a world like that which you built. And finally, I would lean on Diablo 3 when it comes to how to divorce form from function, as well as how to structure difficulty within the endgame. Just a tip as an aside, the Brother Vance Forge weapons are dropping at your power level, even if you're over 340, so they're worth checking out if you've yet to obtain them. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If this is your first time hearing my voice, know that I do post quite a bit of content on this channel, and there are Destiny videos to be found here. There's even a playlist of them. I did initially post a review of Destiny 2, and I think that the majority of what I say there is still relevant, so do give it a listen as well when you have the time. If you enjoy what I'm doing, please like, share, subscribe, all the things people would normally ask of you. I'm odinSdub with a capital S on the PSN. My clan goes by the Evolved Iron Wolves, if you're looking for some easygoing players who sometimes like to make drinking games of raids, and I hope to see you next time.